going to play this Conte press conference in its entirety and then react to it afterwards.
Believe me. Thank you very much.
Wow. I mean, I've watched this about 5 or 6 times, and it just gets like, I still get shocked by it every time, even though I think that, look, whatever you think about Conte and his tactics and the way he plays his football, whatever you think about it, this press conference was 100% to the word spot on, every single letter. I thought it was an unbelievable press conference. I'm behind every single thing that he said. They have, I think, a few journalists like Ali Gold and whoever have come out and said that Conte and the board have spoken about this press conference, and they've accepted that he wasn't talking about the board and was only talking about the players in that situation. I'm not sure how they came to that conclusion with that last line, that when he was saying that, in 20 years, the club need to make changes, otherwise they're not going to win anything. I don't understand how he's not talking about the board in that situation. But look, I think Conte is absolutely spot on, and I don't understand anyone that thinks otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously he was very angry. He was clearly really passionate about what happened on the pitch yesterday. But when he's talking about the mentality of the team, the culture of the club, this is something we've been speaking about for many, many years. This is nothing new. When we lost like 3-0 away in Zagreb, you think that was Mourinho's fault? You know what I mean? It's the players who have the wrong mentality, turning up thinking they're better than they are, and not having that aggression and that fight in every single game to make sure they come away with the result. We come away from games far too often and having not given our all, having not made sure that if we're grinding out a result, we're making sure that we're defending the right things. Everyone's working for each other. For too often, these players have been getting away with far too many lackluster displays and not leaving everything on the pitch. And that's what he's calling out. This club don't know what it's like to win things, and he is saying, plain and simple, that it's because of your mentality of when you go out on that pitch, everyone needs to fight for each other. You need to be a team, and when the going gets tough and you have to really have your backs against the wall and you have to fight for each other, you have to come out fighting, and you have to, as you say, see the white in your eyes, see that aggression, see that fire. We don't have it. It's too easy. We're way too easy to play against. It's way too like, oh, whatever. All right, we'll draw 3-3. We'll give away.
As soon as this team gets under pressure, we flop.
We'll crumble.
We falter every single time. And that's what Conte's alluding to, and it's absolutely spot on. These players, how many times have we said it? They've let every single manager down. They let Poch down. They let Mourinho down. Now they're letting Conte down. It's just rinse and repeat every time. And until we get a better set of players to fulfill the manager's wishes, like he said, this is just going to keep going on and on and on and on. There are a section of the Spurs fan base that are saying that this is disgraceful from Conte. How can he come out and say this? You never speak out against your club. I mean, I saw Jamie O'Hara saying the same things, like you can't speak about this like about your own club. I mean, then when is things ever going to change? Like, I have no problems with Conte coming out and saying this. Everything was completely pure facts. And until things do change fundamentally at this club, this thing is going to keep carrying on. So I commend and applaud Conte for coming out and saying these things yesterday.
It's been so long. Like, how many years are Spurs fans going to go through it? We're saying the same things as Conte's been saying for many years. So when Conte says, what am I supposed to do? Start being up in arms, and him actually just saying it as it is. It's been the problems at Tottenham for many, many, many years. But since, I wouldn't say maybe under Pochettino was necessarily the problem, the mentality of the team, but pretty much even under Pochettino, when things started to go wrong, for sure that was the problem. And under Jose, it's 100% been the problem. Even before Pochettino, a lot of the time, but whatever, don't want to get into that. But definitely the last few years under Jose and Conte, we haven't had the quality or the mentality to see games through and actually stick to game plans and actually work for each other. And that's why we're in the position that we are now. And I think Conte, for me, as much as in an ideal world, stuff like this is kept behind closed doors, in general, like I think we've seen a manager who's just at his wit's end of this team and of Tottenham, to be honest, right now. And I think we're in a situation where we're a club who hasn't won anything for 15 years, and these problems that he's articulating have been massive issues for this team for many years, and he can't just come in and solve it in 18 months and all of a sudden make us winners and change the mentality and the culture of the club in 18 months. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's almost as if because he's such a winner and because of his CV, we expect him to just come in and start winning immediately because that's who he is. But in fact, this whole club has very deep-seated issues, which he's alluding to, and it ain't going to change unless there's a concerted effort from everyone to make big changes. And I think right now Spurs just aren't in a position where we're going to start winning things. That's just reality now. Unless we do things in a different way, we're never going to compete. And it's almost like we're happy not to compete as well, and that culture stems from the top. When you have that culture of we're happy just to like battle for top four, we're not really care about the cups, and if we go out, no one really cares. As long as we're in a top four race, then everyone's happy and everyone's fine about everything, and we're not really bothered about anything else apart from getting the top four race. That seeps into the players, and then they know as well that they could turn up to Sheffield and not turn up, but no one's really going to care as long as they're in the top four race and get top four. No one's really going to care. And this whole culture of kind of just kind of half competing for top four and just trying to get Champions League football, that's why we're in a position where players feel comfortable putting in performances like they did in the last 20 minutes yesterday and putting performances like they did against Sheffield, because that's the culture of the club right now. We're not built to win. We don't care if we win. The players don't. The players after Sheffield, I reckon some of the players, probably very quickly forgot about it and didn't really care. They just go home and they can put it behind, as long as as long as we make up for it next week or after international break with a home win. Everyone's going to forget about yesterday's draw, and that's not the mentality we should have. Yeah,
a lot of people are saying that the responsibility of the players, of the what am I trying to say? The responsibility of how the players act on the pitch is down to the manager. That's what a lot of people are saying, and I'd agree with them. But when you're seeing it happen time and time again under all these different managers, under Pochettino, Mourinho, Nuno, Conte, then at what point do we start pointing the finger at the players and not the manager? Because at the moment, all I see is Conte out. All I saw was Jose out. All I saw was Poch out. And now
we knew the players were throwing Pochettino under the bus at the end of the stage as well.
And we keep burning down managers time and time again because of these players throwing these managers under the bus, and then we automatically, collectively as a fan base, go get these managers out. Yesterday at the end of the game, countless amounts of people come up to me after the game, go, all right, surely Conte's going to go. Get him out. He's not the right man for this club, blah, blah, blah. Not a good manager, dinosaur, fossil football, all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm saying to them, look, at the back end of Poch, we didn't win an away game for what? Was it like a year or something that we didn't win an away game? Was that down to Pochettino? No. Jose Mourinho, like you said about Zagreb and all those other terrible games that we had under Jose, was that down to Jose? No. This Conte, what's happening with Conte now? Is it down to Conte? No. It's down to these same individual players that let us down time and time again. And what Conte was speaking about in that press conference was absolutely true to the core. And it's been true for a number of years now at Tottenham Hotspur. And something fundamental needs to change at this club. Otherwise, like he says, the same things are going to be happening over and over again under multiple different managers. And we're just going to be going through the same cycle as we've been in since sacking Pochettino.
Yeah, we have from the board point of view, we have too many stopgaps. We have too many players in there that the current manager isn't going to use or doesn't want. It doesn't lead to a clear, a shared philosophy from the top down, as to everyone being on the same page. The players, a lot of the time, they can implement tactical. They can implement tactical systems, but they're not good enough a lot of the times to see them out and actually perform them on the pitch, and that leads to the managers getting frustrated when the tactical plan's working, and then it gets undermined by poor mistakes or poor mentality from a lot of the players, and so that leads to a situation where we are now, where we're getting very inconsistent performances. Conte can't get consistency out of this backline because they're not good enough to be consistent, and I think this is a problem that stems from the top. The players have to take a lot of responsibility, and obviously Conte has his fair share of responsibility as well. And I think he said himself in the press conference, and obviously I have to take responsibility for how it is on the pitch. But when it comes to, Conte has to take responsibility for the attitude, of course, if the players are down tools, then that's on that. A lot of the time, manager has to take a lot of responsibility for that, because it's on him to motivate them. But it's not a motivation thing; it's a quality thing. It's a mentality thing, and that can't just come from the manager. The play that has to come from the players. When the great teams the real great teams, they have leaders on the pitch who make sure that the job is being implemented, and make sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone's fighting for each other. They can't just all come from the manager constantly. The players have to take some responsibility on the pitch, and that's what great players and great teams have, and they do. And Tottenham just don't have that right now. They just don't have it on the pitch.
Look at the leaders he's had in those great teams, John Terry, John Terry wasn't there, but
he was there in his first season.
There.
Yeah, he was.
So John Terry, he had big leaders at Chelsea, at Inter Milan, Skriniar, Barella, great leaders at Inter Milan. At Juventus, who did he have? Like Chiellini and these kind of players, big leaders. And who do we have marshalling that backline? Eric Dyer.
He's not a leader. I mean, he is a leader in his own way, but he's just not someone who can lead you to a title challenge. You know what I mean? That's just never going to happen. Harry Kane, as much as I think he has good leadership skills, you can't have Harry Kane as a leader at the back. He's a striker. He's going to be up front. He can't be telling the defenders what to do. He's got to deal with his own thing. We don't have that quality on the pitch, that mentality to see the job through, all the quality, and that stems from the top. It comes down to a lot of the players taking responsibility for not being good enough as well, and that leaves the situation where we are right now.
That's the key word, is responsibility. None of our players, apart from Harry Kane, take responsibility on that football pitch. You see Harry Kane time and time again trying to do stuff. You saw how angry he was yesterday when we conceded that third goal. I didn't see the anger on anyone else. It was just Harry Kane muttering to himself and being really frustrated. But you don't see that from anyone else. It seems as though Harry Kane is the only one in that whole team that really care and really is going to go have a sleepless night when they go home. Him and Conte, pretty much. He's
the only one who has that drive, that mentality to be the best. Do you think Dyer has that mentality and drive to be the best? I don't see it. It doesn't. It seems where he's happy at his level. Then he's happy to be at where he is, making these mistakes and sometimes putting in good performances. That's not what we need to go to the next level. We have too many stopgaps when it comes to the transfer market. We don't have a consistent philosophy throughout the whole club. It's like we're going to plug a gap here, we're going to sign a player who we can sign here. It's not like we're going to sign players to fill specific roles that we need for the team. And it leads to situations where we have a player on loan for 6 months who doesn't fit the system. What's the point? Yeah. What's the point of having him here? What's the point? If Conte didn't need a player like that, then why the hell did we nick him from Everton and bring him in? If why we're so desperate to bring him in, if that was the case. I think Conte, all that frustration bore out yesterday in Conte's press conferences. It was passionate, and it was obviously, you got in those situations, you're going to get a lot of people saying it's unbelievable. How can anyone defend him? You're going to have people say you leave these things in house. It was a meltdown, people say, and all these kind of things. I just saw someone at his wit's end who's very passionate about his job and wants to be the best and wants his club to be the best. And he's kind of trying to up the standards of everyone else, and everyone else seems to be happy not being the best, essentially. And he's kind of happy with mediocrity. And he's kind of trying to drive everyone up and trying to drive everyone forward. And everyone else is kind of saying, actually, we're pretty happy here.
Yeah.
And that's why he's going mad.
Of course. And when you see a team that's got worse from last season, then he's well warranted to say that, because the fact of the matter is, I agree with some fans that say that this kind of stuff should be kept in-house. But when it's been going on for that long, for so long, that predates Conte, that predates Nuno, that predates Jose Mourinho, then this stuff needs to come out. It needs to come out. Otherwise, this is going to keep happening. And ultimately, Paul O'Keefe and all the journalists coming out this morning saying that he didn't lay into the board yesterday. What did you make out of that? Do you think he laid into the board yesterday?
I think if you read his quotes, they suggest that he did. But if you actually watch it, I think he is definitely more calling out the players than the board, 100%.
No, I get that.
He
But
is
do you
saying
think
that.
he did call out the board?
Because
I think he did. That comment right at the end, if that's not a shot at the board, then what is it?
What was the quote right at the end? He said,
in last 20 years under this ownership, we haven't.
Is that a direct quote? You've got to be very specific here. Did he say last 20 years under this ownership?
Yeah.
But that was the last quote.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. He said the last 20 years.
But he said, I think the quote you're talking about is, he said,
it was the mic drop quote, wasn't
he
it?
said last 20 years under this ownership where they've won nothing. Why? But then he followed on that saying, is it the manager, is it the club, or do the players have to take responsibility?
No,
that's
that
what
was
he
a different
said.
quote, I think. The last quote was like a mic drop thing. He didn't explain his quote. He just said, if you go right to the end,
yeah.
Can you see it?
He said, not only the club, the manager and the staff, the players have to be involved in this situation because it's time to change the situation if Tottenham wants to change. If they want to continue in this way, they can change the manager, a lot of managers, but the situation cannot change, believe me.
So he's saying that the board need to change something, otherwise this is going to keep happening. The same thing is going to keep happening over and over again.
Yeah, I hear that, but I guess he's talking to the board there, but he's calling out the players.
I think he's calling out both. And
he qualifies that quote by the beginning of the quote is the players have to be involved in the situation because if it is time to change the situation, if Tottenham want to change.
Look, I agree that it was mainly down to the players, this press conference, but I don't accept that he's not talking about the board at all in this and calling out the board at all.
I think he is calling out the board. I don't think he's like calling them out as much as he's calling out the players. I think he's directing. He is directing it at the players. I think mostly. I think he is a bit of the board, but I do think he is pretty much directing these quotes square.
Look, at the end of the day, who's responsible for having these players on the football pitch? It's the board, time and time again. How many seasons are we going to go into with these terrible players and centre backs? It's just not good enough, and it's all a circumstance from the board. That's what it is. All this.
Yeah, we know that. I think there isn't a coherent strategy between the board and the manager, and that leads to big problems as well. The board, more often than not, look to cut corners when it comes to players rather than getting what the team needs. When we do end up spending big money, it's okay, fine. We can spend big money on players like Richarlison or players like that, but are those players that we really want and the team need, or are those players that we can actually just sign? And that's the reality. I think a lot of the time, Spurs, their transfer strategies is what can we do or not instead of what should we do. I think a lot of the time it's who can we sign, not who should we sign, and that leads to situations where when we don't really have the proper tools in the squad.
When you go into a transfer window, every single transfer window, and don't have a clear plan and clear objectives and literally just scouring the market for any good opportunities that come around, then what do we expect to happen? Do we expect to go on and fight for titles and go far in the Champions League and win cups? Because it's not going to happen. You need a clear plan and clear targets every single window that need planning, not just going into a window willy-nilly and saying, oh, look, he's running out his contract in a year. Oh, Everton need money, so let's go spend 60 million on Richarlison. It doesn't work. We need clear objectives and clear plans and clear positional targets that we focus on every single year, and we don't do that.
Yeah, and if we're going to go into a season with Dyer and Longley and Sanchez and Tanganga as all our options at centre-back, then you have to have realistic expectations, and that's the reality. And if your expectations are challenged for top four, then what are we doing? We are challenging for top four. So what do you expect? He wants more. He wants better. And it's not gonna, and that's why he's going crazy. He wants a challenge for a title. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to be here like scraping the barrel of top four and just trying to sneak in there.
That's not what we want to be either.
And that's what we want to be. So how can I be angry at Conte trying to elevate this club and trying to make us be better? And then I'm going to be angry at him for calling it out, when the club and the players seem to be just happy to be in a top four race and happy to be a bit to be mediocre.
Yeah.
And that's reality right now. Like I want us to match Conte's ambition, and I want us to be better. Demand more from ourselves. But it seems like all this club is just perennially happy just to be challenging for top four, and sometimes get it, sometimes not, and that's all we're happy to be. We're happy to be mediocre, and that's just not good enough anymore.
I felt like Conte was just speaking for the fan base yesterday and feeling what most people are saying, what most people are feeling, to be honest, and not being able to get their voices heard. But after the press conference yesterday, a lot of fans, including myself, coming out saying, "Oh, surely Conte can't last this. Surely Levy's going to give him the chop." I mean, I was half expecting at one point that I would wake up this morning and Conte would already be fired. But then I had to think about it, and I was thinking, to be honest, while we're still in the top four race, while we're looking like we're going to get top four, while we're still in the top four, Levy would probably take Conte calling him out in every press conference if he still managed to get top four. Like, if he gets his objectives, then what does Levy care?
Well, if Conte has clarified his quotes, in quote, this morning, which apparently he has, according to Alistair Gold, to the board, saying that he wasn't taking shots at the board. If they agree with that assessment and that he was squarely blaming the players, then I guess they won't feel as strongly as maybe a lot of the fans did last night as to what the reaction would be if he's calling out the players. And depends how the players respond. Obviously, if all the players completely just turn on him and say, "Look, we're not going to play for you anymore," then obviously there has to be a big decision. But I think the board, if they accept his explanation, then I don't see a reason to part ways right now. It does make. I think Conte needs to shock these players into something, and right now, that was what I was worried about. I've said it before the Southampton game. I said it after the Milan game, that I'm worried about the season just petering out, the players not being fully into this top four fight and just allowing the season to drift away. And that's what Conte doesn't want to happen. I think you saw that yesterday. Any sign of that happening, he's going to be on it like a flash. And he's going to make sure these players don't, don't get away with it. Don't get away with just allowing the season to drift. And they have to be up for the fight. They have to be up. I said it in the Southampton preview. I absolutely said it. I'm not worried about beating a team like Southampton quality-wise. I'm worried about us being up for the fight when push comes to shove, because Southampton are going to be scrapping and scraping for every single tackle and to get every point they can. They're going to be scrapping, and once they turned it into a scrap, we didn't want any of it. And that's what Conte's saying. That's what he's wary about. He wants the mentality to be different. He wants, if it's a battle, we match that fight. We match that intensity. And we didn't do that. And that's why he's going mad. And that's why, because he doesn't want any sign. He doesn't want any sign of us not putting our all from now to the end of the season. And the first sign of it, he's going to call it out.
Yeah. And look, I think it's clear for everyone to see that the club and Conte probably will part ways at the end of the season. But I think those are the home truths that the players really need to hear yesterday. They really need to hear it. And I wish I was a fly on the wall in the dressing room after that game. I was saying to you after the game that I wish they did all or nothing this year rather than that year under Jose Mourinho. But look, I was getting really tired of things under Conte, with him not kind of signing that contract and us not knowing anything. But after that press conference yesterday, I swear to you, I'm more Conte in than I've ever been, because I saw the fire in him yesterday. I saw a man that really cared for the club yesterday, that really cared for that fan base yesterday. And I saw players on that pitch that didn't, to be honest, to be quite frank with you. So I am fully on board with Antonio Conte after those comments that he made yesterday. So it's a sad state of affairs that has to go down to this way because of these players that we do have. But it'll be interesting to hear your opinions on everything. But that is our reaction to the Antonio Conte press conference yesterday.